Hello friends, James Stevenson back with a special report on CNBC chart crimes. You can't really call this a Who's Hating Hard on Tesla Today episode because it's just a humorous chart crime committed by CNBC, pointed out to me by a follower. First, we'll check in on Loki, who is curled up in bed still, as I take a sip of my coffee, in the hopes of making my voice sound a little bit better. That's a little bit better. Before I share my screen with you, you can keep an eye on Loki and the Loki's bed cam down here while I look at this chart crime shared by Andy Gray at Gray, A-G-R-C-Y, Gray. Tagging me, this horrible math and misleading pie chart are painful if you already haven't fixed it already. This may be a fun one to try. I bet it looks a lot different in the end. And why combine Hyundai and Kia? So let's take a look at how CNBC decided to graph some information they had. Oh boy, fasten your seatbelts. So we got a cropped photo here from CNBC television. So they broadcast this chart to the otherwise unsuspecting viewing public, calling it U.S. EV market share through Q3. So that's year-to-date Q3, right? Tesla, they say, is 56.3%. Then they have Hyundai Kia 8%, GM 6.4%, Volkswagen 5.7%, Ford 5.3%. And if you glance over at this chart to try to match these up, you may be thinking 56.3%. This pie wedge looks way bigger than you would expect 56.3% to be. What's going on? Well, what's going on is all of these pie pieces are a lot bigger than they're supposed to be because the person who made this chart made it a pie chart of only the top 5 companies selling EVs in the US and threw out all the other companies that sell EVs in the US. Let me scroll down and show you my comment. Ouch. A top 5 pie chart by percentage of total EV sales, including all EV automakers not shown. Never seen that before. You're allowed to combine the rest into an all-other wedge, folks. Yeah, so that's the truth. And maybe I'll walk you through an example of how to do that really quickly, since the people at CNBC couldn't be bothered to do that. But what I noticed is that this data is the same data I've been charting for over a month now. And I'll show you what I mean on this table. So if I add together the rows for the brands, Cadillac, Chevrolet, and GMC, that gives me 6.4%. You probably can't read. Let me move this window over a little bit. There. You probably can't read that 6.4% down here, but I can. Maybe you're watching me on a high-def screen and you can read it. It says 6.4%, which is exactly what they said GM was. 6.4% U.S. EV market share through Q3. The data comes from Cox Automotive. This is their U.S. EV sales data. What about these yellow ones here? Well, those are the yellow wedge. I total this up to 7.9%. They're showing 8% for the yellow wedge, which is Hyundai Kia. Let's find Volkswagen. This is going to be a hard one to see because this dark blue is so close. And that's this wedge here, not the other dark blue wedge. Why do they have 2 dark blue wedges on a pie that only has 5 pieces? There's more than 5 colors. So that's here and here and here. These are the brands owned by VW that sell EVs in the US. That sums to 5.7%, which is what they show here, and Ford at 5.3%. What's funny is how well most of those matched up. Now we go to the Tesla number, which was 56.5%, and Tesla has been needlessly shorted 0.2 of a point here by CNBC. They're reporting Tesla at 56.3 when the actual number is 56.5. So if you can figure out how they got that number wrong, let me know in the comments below. I can't figure it out. So Tesla's the automaker that grew their EV sales by the most vehicles sold year over year by far, 102,000. additional Teslas were sold this year, year-to-date Q3 versus last year, same time period. And I visualized that for you on a few charts. So here's one of them. This is too big to fit your screen. Let me just size it down a little bit. Well, that's probably too much, but you get the idea. Let me zoom in here the other way. There. So here's what the growth in EV sales by brand looks like. Most of the growth is coming from Tesla, even though Tesla was the #1 selling brand last year. Let's find another way of looking at this. This is just US EV unit sales growth or decline versus the prior year. Tesla's growth is way, way more than the second place automaker, Chevrolet. The second place brand, excuse me. Chevrolet has other brands like GMC and Cadillac that also grew, so you'd need to stack these on top of each other to get their total General Motors company increase. But you can see nobody else is growing anywhere close to what Tesla is growing by, but these companies are gaining market share year over year because their sales were so poor in the prior year that some of these growths doubled their prior year sales, right? So they increased by 100% or more over their pathetic prior year number, which gains them market share when you do the market share calculation. Here's what the total market looks like. It's Tesla and it's all others combined. I know how to make an all others combined category. So here's the 102,000 vehicle increase for Tesla year over year. Everybody else combined increased by, less than 200,000. But that's good enough for them to gain market share, meaning this red bar is a larger percentage of the combined bar than this red bar is as a percentage of this combined bar, but only because these sales were so poor in the prior year. If these companies had been selling 380,000 vehicles in the prior year, Tesla would have gained market share. But by virtue of how poor their sales were in the prior year, they're gaining market share on Tesla, if you do the math. Here's what it looks like as a line chart. Can I make that go away? There. So the red line here is Tesla. Tesla grew from this number, 390,000, to this number, nearly 500,000, 493,513. What did everybody else grow from and to? Well, last year, the best there was in second place was Ford. Ford sold 41,236 EVs last year. So nearly an order of magnitude more vehicles were sold by Tesla last year than by the second place brand, and more than an order of magnitude than the third place brand, Kia, at 24,468. Ford didn't really grow much. You can tell by how horizontal this line is, and they were actually passed by Chevrolet, that almost made the 50,000 unit mark in 2023. So you can see in 2022 and 2023, no Tesla competitor managed to sell even 50,000 EVs in the US over the first 9 months of the year. And Tesla did this. What else do we have here? Oh, I need to show you these in order. So here's what the bubble chart looks like if you do it on a logarithmic scale. So here's Tesla's 56.5%, the correct number, not 56.3%. And here's where everybody else falls. In this view, you may say, hey, they're not that far behind, but remember the scale. It's a log scale here. Every time you see one of these vertical lines, that means the x-axis has doubled in size. So, for example, we've got Cadillac here. Then the prior year sold about 40 EVs. And in the current year they sold 36 in the prior year. And in the current year, they sold 5,334. So that's why they're way out here all by themselves, because they grew by so much year over year from this very low number last year to a much larger number as a percentage of the prior year. That's a huge percentage growth. and it gained them 0.6 percentage points of market share against Tesla. How about Mazda? What are they doing? Can I hover over this dot? It's so tiny, it may be hard for me to hover over it. Yeah, so you can see last year they sold, maybe 300-ish vehicles, and this year they sold maybe around 100 vehicles, something like that. So how many times would they need to double their sales to catch up with Tesla? Well, you can just count vertical lines. They need to double it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times, 11 times, 12 times, 13 times. All right, keep at it, Mazda. If you can just double your sales every year for the next 13 years, you'll be caught up to where Tesla already is this year. That's this way of looking at it. The other way is to just use straight scales. So these are the normal scales that you would see on charts that just show you, okay, here's 0, here's 50,000, 150, 250, 350, 450. The other way, 50,000, 150, 250, 350, 450, 550. Here's Tesla way out here all by themselves, and here's everybody else at the kids' table in the less than 50,000 box, the smallest box there is on the page. Maybe you want me to zoom in on this 50,000 box. I have taken the liberty of doing that for you. Let's zoom in an order of magnitude and see what's going on in here. So there's that Ford number we saw before, 5.3%. This number from Chevrolet doesn't match the GM number because you have to add in the GMC number and the Cadillac number that are in here somewhere, I guess. Let's zoom in on this box, another order of magnitude, because these are very overlapping and hard to read. All right, so what's down here in the less than 4,500 vehicles sold? Well, there's Cadillac we saw earlier. Genesis, Lucid, Mini, GMC. We've still got a crowd over here, so we'll zoom in one more time. That's where we found Mazda, Jaguar, and BrightDrop combined, selling fewer than 400 EVs in both years over the first 9 months of the year. So that's how I would have visualized this data. Let's see if we can make a better pie chart. I'll try and do this really, really quickly. So to do that, I'll just punch in these numbers. I'll punch in the correct numbers. So 56.5 is the Tesla number. Let's do that right here, 56.5. Then we've got Hyundai Kia, we'll call it 8. Well, should I call it 8 or should I call it what it actually was, which is 7.9. All right, so this will be Tesla. Then we'll have Hyundai Kia. If I can spell. Hyundai Kia here. And they'll be 7.9. Then we'll have GM at 6.4. VW at whatever their number was, 5.7. Ford at 5.3, and then all other is what we need for our pie chart to be not a chart crime, and that's going to be 100 minus the sum of whatever we've called out above here. So there should be 18.2 left. If I add all of these up, that makes 100 exactly. Let's make a pie chart. I'll just go to the insert menu here, and I'll go to pie. I'll just make a pie chart. There it is. Now we'll put the labels on here, add data labels. Yep, that's better. And maybe I should make this bigger so you can see it, because on your screen that's not very big. Maybe I'll make this a different chart design. That looks better. Maybe I'll get rid of the legend, format these data labels to be both the category name and the value. Maybe the separator can be a new line. There we go. Maybe this needs to be Century Gothic. I'm just showing you how I make charts now. Here's Century Gothic. That's better. Let's make these fonts bigger so people can read them. This one. Wow, did they leave the default settings? Is that why they had 2 blues? Yeah, so here's the key to making a good-looking chart is don't leave the default settings. change all the defaults. So yeah, here's a better pie chart. A good title on here might be US EV sales by automaker. I'm not going to finish it out much more than this. We don't need this legend because the labels are already on the wedges where they go. Except for this one, which is hanging out outside. So what I'll do to fix that is rotate the first slice until Hyundai Kia pops inside. That's a little hack for you. And then I'll click on this one and I'll change its font color so people can read it. That's a little sloppy to do it that way, but at least you can tell what it is. And there you go, a better pie chart. So how long did that take? Did that take 4 minutes to make not a chart crime like this? There you go. There's US EV sales by automaker. Here's Tesla, 56.5% of the market. There's a whole bunch of other formatting changes I would make to this, but you don't want to watch those in this video. This is probably a good place to end this video and say thank you for watching this video. I'll check back in with my co-host Loki, see if he has anything else to add before I remind you to click like on this on the video wherever you're watching it, Patreon or on X or on YouTube. That helps other people find this video so they can edify themselves and not be guilty of creating chart crimes themselves, hopefully. Thank you to everyone who supports me, whether you're doing that on X or on Patreon, or by joining my YouTube channel as my executive producers Kathy Kitchler and Rebellionaire.com did, and I'll see you in the next one.